Hello, welcome back to our study of the Sunday school lessons. I got glasses over Christmas break, so I decided to sit in front of a bunch of books that I can finally read more clear. Our lesson that we're going to look at today is from Joshua and Joshua chapter 6, and it's one of those Sunday school lessons that most people know. Probably if you think of any military battle in the Bible that people participated in. I mean, not the, plagues. Maybe plagues is number one. This is probably number two, is the fall of the walls of Jericho, where all the people march around the city over and over again, and then the walls fall down. So we're going to take a closer look at that. Where we're picking up is Joshua has just taken over as the leader of the people. So the children of Israel came out of Egypt, made it all the way to the promised land. The people rebelled when the spy report came back. They said, we can never go in. And, God's not strong enough. We all look like grasshoppers compared to these people. God said, it's enough grumbling with you. 10 times you've grumbled. 10 times you've said you wanted to go back to Egypt and die there. So anybody of military age, you're going to die out here in the desert. But your children, they're going to go into the land. Fast forward 40 years, the children are entering into the promised land. They enter behind Joshua, no longer behind Moses. Moses did not enter the promised land because of taking some glory from God and striking a rock when God told him to just speak to the rock. So Joshua is taking over, and Joshua leads the people across the Jordan River on dry ground. They come across at Ai, and they camp at Gilgal. So, not that you know where Gilgal is, but Gilgal is just the name of a city kind of very near to Jericho. This very strong town with very big walls, which if you were going to take your people to have your first official military battle in the land of Canaan, this was kind of a big one. This would be a very important battle for you. Now, the children of Israel had won a couple of battles out in the desert against Magog, and there was Balaam and Balak where, they're wanting to call curses down on them. But this is the really first battle where they're within the land of Canaan, and they're going to drive out all those nations of the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hittites and the Hivites and the, Girgashites, and, just fun names to say, or to name your children Girgash. Anyway, so children of Israel, they get to Gilgal, and God, once they get into the land, they set the people apart. All the people take place in the covenant of circumcision, all the men do, set aside, and after they recover from that, then we get to Jericho. Now, before we actually get in to Jericho and to the marching around the walls, we have to look at this lesson, because this is a lesson that I don't think shows up in a lot of our Sunday school books. And a lot of the books that my children and myself were reading through different Bible stories, and usually, they only take 3-4 weeks to make it through. The last one, actually, which I think we still have a couple of copies of here, the Story Bible. We still do have a copy. If you have any young children in your family and you're coming by the Springs, we'd be happy to give this to you. I know we bought some, and I can bring in my copy as well if you want it, but it was a good Bible. Going through it pretty in depth. I think it's about 450 pages, but every lesson is only about 2 pages long. A nice big picture for the children, has a little vocabulary, walking through it, and this is always helpful to have a couple of questions afterwards to ask your children what happened, so that they really do get some appreciation. You can talk about it as a family, and it can be yours for free. No, I'm not selling it at all. Just come on by. I'd be happy to give you a Bible. So anyway, children of Israel, they make it in. They're set apart by God. And now, chapter 5 of Joshua, verse 13. Now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw in front of him a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked him, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." And Joshua did so. Now, this is very interesting for a number of reasons. One, the angel of the Lord appears to Joshua. Okay? Appears to Joshua, and this is very reminiscent of the way that the Lord appeared to Moses, right? Now, one, it's a burning bush, and another one, it's an angel of the Lord with his sword drawn, which very recently I mentioned very briefly Balak and Balaam. So, if you don't know the story of Balak and Balaam, I think it's in Numbers or Deuteronomy. But anyway, they're going to fight against this king named Balak, and Balak ends with a K, so just remember Balak is the king, and Balak hired Balaam. Balaam ends with an M. He's a magician, okay? So Balak hires Balaam to set a curse on the children of Israel. But every time that Balaam tries to curse the children of Israel, instead he gives a blessing. And one time when he's about to go to the children of Israel to go up on this high place and proclaim this curse on them, which you can't do, he's riding on his donkey, and his donkey sees an angel of the Lord standing there with his sword drawn, ready for battle. So the donkey keeps going to the side, and Balaam keeps hitting the donkey, saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then the donkey talks to Balaam. Okay, talks from the donkey. Again, I forget the reference. I'll find it and I'll try and put it at the bottom of the screen somewhere here in my editing process, so you can look that up. But anyway, so the Lord appears to him with this angel of the Lord with the sword drawn, which is a way that he had appeared during the time of Moses. And then that "take off your shoes," this is holy ground. Again, another reminiscent thing of what happened to Moses. But the really interesting thing I find here is that line when Joshua talks to him and says, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" And the angel of the Lord says, "Neither." It's just kind of a strange response, because you think that if you're not for us, you're against us. And you think that the Lord would be on the side of Joshua, on the side of the children of Israel, his chosen nation. But the thing is, it's completely different levels, okay? It'd be like, if there was a, pee-wee football team of third graders, or maybe, I don't know when they start playing football, third graders playing against each other, and a little kid comes up to, Khalil Mack. My wife's a big Bears fan, so anyway, a huge linebacker in the NFL, right? And says, "Are you on our team or are you on their team?" And you're just like, "Neither, kid." Okay? Now that's just the age of 10 to the age of 30. So it's 20 years difference, but it's just worlds apart as far as talent is concerned. I mean, you can think of a linebacker just, tackling a 10-year-old quarterback. It'd be terrible, right? Because they're so much stronger, so much bigger. Now you have the angel of the Lord standing in front of Joshua. And while Joshua, is this powerful army on earth, and the Lord is going to be with them and help them win, he commands the Lord's army. Completely different level, completely different plane than what you're thinking about Joshua. Now, he's going to tell him what to do. He's going to tell him how to win that battle. He's going to fight for him, but, he's just he's in a different game than what Joshua is playing. He's on a different plane than what Joshua is doing. So, anyway, Joshua falls face down talks to him. He takes off his sandals. Joshua does so, and then we get into chapter 6. So chapter 6. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out, and no one came in. So not only do they have these big walls that are surrounding Jericho, they're very, very strong, but they're also having all these precautions. This is a code purple or red or whatever it is, so that no one can go in, no one can go out. You can't have any spies, you can't have any intruders that are going to open up the gate or anything. It is completely locked off. They are in siege position, just trying to survive the other side out. So maybe, hopefully, the Israelites will go, yeah, I really don't want to just sit around here for a year while that city is sitting there. They might send out some messenger and they're going to bring in around another army, and we don't want to fight anymore, so maybe they'll move on. But remember that the people of Jericho are terrified. They're terrified of the children of Israel. Rahab told us about that in 2020 when we were looking at the story of the spies going in and talking to Rahab. They said the people's heart was melting inside of them because they heard what these people had done to the Egyptians and what they did to the armies that were out there in the desert. And if that God, the God that can turn the Nile into blood and kill the firstborn son of every man and animal in the country of Egypt overnight, if that God is fighting for the Israelites, the people in Jericho wanted nothing to do with it. Okay, they did not want to fight that war. They knew that this was going to be rough. So they lock everything down, lock it up, just try and rely on their big, strong walls. Then the Lord, who is this angel with his sword drawn, said to Jericho, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have all the people give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the people will go in, every man straight in." So this is the plan. You're going to have all the people, all the armed men. You're going to have the army. They're going to get out. And what are they going to do? They're just going to walk. Going to go for a little walk. Taking a little walk, going around the city. We're going to walk around the city, all of them. We're going to have the Ark of the Covenant in front of us. We're not going to talk, which would just be terrifying. You think of like a boxer or UFC fighter just kind of eyeing up his opponent, walking back and forth, looking at him, about to battle, and they just walk around the city, and the only sound that's heard besides the footsteps that are walking around with this huge army of like 600,000 men. 600,000! Okay, that's a lot of people walking around the city. Besides the marching, you hear the sound of the shofar. And I'll try and find a link and put it on here. But it's this like curly ram's horn, and it's just this kind of weird noise that we're not very used to. I don't know if you've ever seen like the World Cup. Well, you probably have seen a World Cup. But a couple years ago in a World Cup, they had these like big long trumpet things that kind of looked like herald's horns. But they were super annoying. They're made out of plastic, and they really only give off like 1 or 2 pitches, like that sounded like Survivor. But again, I'll put it up there, but it's just this kind of eerie noise as 600,000 armed men walk around the city, and then they go back to camp. And the next day they get up and they walk around the city, and they go back to camp. And you got to think that every time this army is coming towards Jericho, the people are all getting up. They're getting up to the walls. They're getting their bows and arrows ready, saving their weapons, getting their swords out, doing whatever they can to protect themselves, and then they go back. And by the 6th day, you think they'd be a little bit emboldened. They might be shouting some insults at the people, yelling at them. And then on the 7th day, right, when they walk around the city, with the priest blowing the trumpets, have all the people So not only them, but then all the people around give a loud shout. And this shout of this battle cry, it's like, we're victorious already. We have won this battle. So, verse 6. So Joshua son of Nun called the priests and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord, have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it. Who are the people? Advance, march around the city with the armed guard, going ahead of the ark of the Lord. When Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark. All this time the trumpets were sounding. But Joshua had commanded the people, do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices, do not say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout. So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the people returned to camp, spent the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. Then 7 priests carrying 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord while the trumpets were sounding. So on the second day they marched around the city once and returned to camp. And they did this for 6 days. Returned to camp, did it for 6 days. 7th day, they got up at daybreak, marched around the city 7 times in the same manner. And I have to think about this. From what we have heard so far, Joshua has not told the people that the wall is going to collapse. He just told them, hey, march around this city. And it doesn't make any sense, you know? Like, if you're going to fight against a walled city, you think you want to do something else, right? You think you want to weaken that wall a little bit. How was noise going to knock down the wall unless they have like some perfect pitch intonation so like the wall vibrates or something? But no, there's just people trusting that they don't have to use their weapons, they don't have to use their power to overcome Jericho, but that God is going to do this for them. They're going to have to trust in God, and they're going to have to be patient. 7 days they're going to do this. 7 days they're going to be quiet. 7 days they're not going to raise their voices. 7 days they're not going to shout back at the people. Patience. Something that their parents did not have a lot of. I mean, they had a lot. I mean, they were living in the desert, you know, hard times, but to be a child of God, oftentimes we have to be patient. Patient for the Lord's plan to come into place. There are many examples of people in the Bible that were patiently waiting for the Lord, and you know, some of them didn't even see God's promises revealed to them in their own lifetime. I mean, some of the promises to Abraham, you know, that all nations on earth will be blessed through him. He never got to see that. He never got to see his descendants be as many as the sands on the seashore and stars in the sky. He didn't get to see that. Simeon, we probably think Simeon was an old man, right? Waited a long time to see the Lord. Now he can let your servant depart in peace. For my eyes have seen the glory of your people. You had to be patient. Patiently waiting for the Lord. The people had to do it. I mean, it's only a week, but got to start somewhere. All right. Keep away from the devoted things. Oh, here we go. 16, 7th time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the people, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she had the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and big trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into his treasury. Now, we talk about like first fruits offerings, right? So first fruits is you go out to the harvest and the first heads of grain that the Lord gives to you. The first ones that come up, you give to the Lord. First tomatoes off the plant, you give to the Lord. When you get your paycheck, the first thing that God wants us to do is to look at it and go, how much of this am I giving to the Lord? Right? Because it's something that we are thankful for, and we decide, I am going to give this to Lord because of everything that He has done for me. And then I'm going to decide responsibly how I'm going to use the rest of the gifts that He gives to me according to my needs in my life. He never gives a dollar amount. He, in the New Testament, does give us a percentage, but He still wants it to be a first fruits offering. Now here, it's a first fruits. This is the first city in the land of Canaan. It's going to be the first silver and the first gold that they really lay their hands on, the first treasure that these people get, the first real power that they get to enjoy the spoils of the war. But it's not for them. This is for the Lord. He's the one that gave you this battle. He wanted them to have this, to give it to Him. So, makes that very clear. Honors the promise to Rahab to keep her safe as well. 20, when the trumpets sounded, the people shouted. And at the sound of the trumpets, when the people gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. Just as simple as that. The wall collapsed. So every man charged straight in. It wasn't like there was a weak part in the wall, right? One part of it was made of jello or bad mortar or something. No, everyone all the way around the city just marched straight in. Just think of like a circle. The whole thing. All the walls are gone. Everyone can march straight in, can charge straight in from every single side, surround into that circle. It's just gone. The wall was completely destroyed. And they took the city. They devoted the city to the Lord, destroyed with the sword every living thing in it, men and women, young and old, cattle and sheep and donkeys. Joshua said to the two men who had spied out the land, go into the prostitute's house, bring her out and all who belong to her in accordance with your oath to her. So they went in, and who had done the spying went in and brought out Rahab, her father and mother and brothers, and all who belonged to her. They brought out the entire family and put them in a place outside the camp of Israel. Because they weren't Jewish. They were still unclean at this time. We're not part of the nation of Israel at this time. All right? Then they burned the whole city, everything in it, but they put the silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her, because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho. And she lives among the Israelites to this day. At that time, Joshua pronounced this solemn oath. Cursed before the Lord is the man who undertakes to rebuild this city Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn son, he will lay its foundations. At the cost of his youngest, will he set up its gates. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout the land. Now, that curse to rebuild Jericho did come true. Later in the New Testament, someone does rebuild the walls of Jericho, and because of it, their children die. The Lord keeps His promises, whether they're good promises or they're promises that have consequences that we in the world would view as bad and evil. Those consequences take place because the Lord keeps His word. Just an incredible story of the Lord's power. It's an incredible story of Joshua trusting in the Lord. I mean, God tells him to do something that doesn't seem militarily like the smartest thing to do. Hey, let's just walk around the city for a week and then blow some horns and see what happens. But Joshua listens to the people. The people listen to Joshua, who's listening to the Lord, and they win. They get the victory. They're in the land of Canaan. They have won their first battle. and they'll continue to conquer some land. So, hope you enjoyed this week's lesson. Try and put those links in, otherwise try and leave them in the comments below this section. But have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.